Comic books are an important contributing factor in many cases of juvenile.
Up in the sky!
Faster than a speeding bullet.
Holy, here we go again.
Hello and welcome to These Guys Have Issues, the podcast where we discuss the current topics and issues within the comic book community. I am your host, Carter Hutchison.
And I'm your co-host, Mike Thomas.
And Mike, we have another DC-oriented show today. We're going to be breaking into Marvel next week. But today we're doing a general topic of how to fix the DCEU.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a general topic. It's a spicy topic, and we're about to lay down some fire.
Right. So basically first of all, how did you approach this? What was your thought process coming to?
So when we originally talked about this, the idea that popped in my mind was movies. That's the easiest thing to think about. What movies could kind of change this around? And then I started thinking about it even more. Like, it's not just necessarily the movies that need to be changed around. It's more aspect of like character placement and longevity of characters and storylines and how the audience would receive something of this caliber to consider as like, I want to follow this over and over again. I felt at the very beginning when DC started to do their movie approach, having one or two team up and then another team up and then standalones. I was like, they don't want to be like Marvel. This is great. I love it. Well, now we got to the point where we got Wonder Woman that was really super successful. Justice League, not so successful. Batman, Superman, not so successful. Aquaman was successful, but there's mixed reviews about it.
Yeah, it made more money than Wonder Woman, though.
I thought Aquaman was amazing. Some people thought it was too CGI-y. It was too...
It's a movie underwater. I don't know what you expect.
No.
Yeah.
And so...
It's like complaining, like, Guardians of the Galaxy has too much CGI.
Spacey, or too space.
Right.
You know. But I started thinking about, okay, like, what has the DCEU done right? And I feel like that they have some casting elements right. And that's what I really want to focus on. But what did you want to focus on when you first started?
So I tried to think of what is our... Clearly, Marvel had a plan, right? Like, their clear end goal was Infinity War, right? That's the culmination of everything they've been doing the past 10 years. So what movie was my slate heading towards, right? What is everything funneling towards? So that was the first thought. It's like, where are we going? What's the end goal here? And then second was, what steps do we need to take there to where a general audience can get what we're trying to get after, right? Because some of these are bigger concepts than... Even Thanos is a bigger concept that Marvel, like, slowly, like, just kind of taffy teased you along with it, and eventually general audiences accept Josh Brolin as a giant, purple guy from space.
Grimace.
Yep. I was looking for that. Couldn't pull it.
I got you, fam. I got you.
Yep. So to do that, I broke it down into phases, again, just like Marvel did. And I basically have two phases, really.
I got you.
So, before we get down into the specifics of how each of us would pitch to fix the DCEU, first a quick word from our Patreon. All of Grassroots Comics is funded through our Patreon, patreon.com/grassrootscomics. For as little as $1 a month, you can become part of the Grassroots Comics community, which includes many perks, such as having your name mentioned in this segment of every episode of the podcast, the ability to suggest topics of discussion for shows like These Guys Have Issues, access to the private Grassroots Comics subreddit where members can continue discussions started on the podcast or start their own, behind-the-scenes access to the GRC studio, and early access to digitally released comics and Classic Cartoon Rewind. So it is the goal of all of us here at Grassroots Comics Productions that one day the Patreon is strong enough where we are able to produce the stories, artwork, and stop-motion animation shorts pitched and selected by the Grassroots Comics community. But the only way that becomes possible is with a strong Patreon. So if you feel that the entertainment value you receive from this podcast is at least worth 25 cents, then please become a Patreon contributor today, and with our powers combined, we can have all of our stories heard. All right, now let's get on with the rest of the show. Okay, so I just want to follow up a quick thing about our Patreon. I know it sounds corny, but literally every dollar does help. All right. So, Mike, do you want to start us off here? Do you want to just kind of go through each individually?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first off, what is the main problem of DC? I think is a nice way to frame the beginning of the conversation.
So, and of course, you have to understand these are Carter and I's opinions. They're not fact. They're not anything. We're not trying to be execs right here.
Yeah.
We're just saying, as fans, this is what we would like to see. So I feel the DCEU rushed everything. They were wanting to capitalize on what Marvel was doing. Mm-hmm. They had a great story with the Man of Steel, and they're just like, F it, we're going to go Tropic Thunder. They went full superhero into it, and they're trying to follow up what Marvel was trying to do by doing their own way. And like I said, I thought that was a good idea. I'm a fanboy of DC more than I am Marvel. I've started to love Marvel more because of the movies, what makes me read more comics. But when DC came out with all these different movies that they're going to do and how they were going to do it, I was like, okay, this is a good formula. It's fresh.
Right.
Because it's not something like Marvel does. I backtrack all of that now because I really do wish that they could have started something like that.
Agreed.
Just because we've seen the success that Marvel's doing, and we have people on the DC side, I mean, that crosses over. Jeff Loeb wrote wonderful books for DC.
Yes.
Grant Morrison.
You wouldn't see him anywhere near a DC movie exec like that.
Of course.
Since
Since
Loeb runs all the Marvel TV.
Exactly. So you wouldn't do it. But I'm just saying, like, when comic books themselves, the writers, the artists, they intertwine.
Yes.
Movies and TV, they do not. Of course, they can't do that because they're contractually, obligated to do this once they get in their 10-year, 5-year. It's like NFL stuff. Right. If you want to think about sports and stuff. Bryce Harper just signed a contract 15 years with the Phillies. He cannot opt out of that contract. There's no way in his contract.
Right. Either he owes them money or they owe him money.
Or he's not playing baseball, period. So Jeff Loeb, the same way. Josh Whedon, he helped out Zack Snyder when his daughter died.
Right.
And to finish up the movie. So that kind of aspect of it, I think that what the DCEU does great is that they have 3 polarizing figures right now that do the films. And that's Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, and Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill's kind of
I know, but
wavering a little.
I still think that those are the best 3 products
I
they
agree
have
with
right
that.
now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's not Ben, obviously. But okay, so let's hear it.
Okay, so let me pull up my list.
All right.
While I whip this out. So my biggest thing was not necessarily the movies. I want to get people around a script. I want to get people around actors. I want to get people around longevity. The great thing that Marvel did was they did not replace characters when they didn't seem like they needed to. So like Terrence Howard was replaced, of course. Don Cheadle blew it out of the park. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's what character we need to have in there, and that builds upon it. So replacing that with a better actor, in my opinion, was great. But Chris Evans is and always will be Captain America until the day he dies. Robert Downey Jr.
made me care about that character in ways I didn't think.
Never ever in the wildest dreams thought that I would read a Captain America
that would
comic.
be a big Captain America fan.
Exactly.
And he's my favorite of the movies. He's
Exactly.
my favorite of the Avengers characters because
I will always be Team Cap till the day that I die. So I need longevity of a character. I need Henry Cavill to carry the torch for Superman for the next 15 years or so.
So basically, get him nailed down on a contract is what you're saying.
Exactly. Bryce Harper
Okay.
it. Don't let him do anything else in his world. Don't let him have a CGI beard off. That was completely stupid. Don't let him do anything.
It wasn't his decision.
I know, but don't let him do anything else like that. Just let him be Superman.
Right.
Let Jason Momoa be Aquaman because he is a damn good Aquaman.
I'm sure and I mean, even if you didn't put these in there, the Cavill side would have certain demands of like, okay, we'll do, 2 movies where Superman is either a cameo or part of a team atmosphere, and then we'll do 3 movies where it's solo. Like, got to make sure Henry gets his own standalone movies.
I completely understand.
Which he so deserves a Man of Steel too.
He does.
It's ridiculous.
The aspect of him. Anytime I think of Superman, I think of the 1990s animated Superman and Lois and Clark Superman.
Yeah,
because Dean Cain was the prototypical Superman you saw in the comics,
right?
One you saw on TV. I think that Henry Cavill splices that together so good, and it's just on the big screen. He is Superman.
On and off the screen.
Pretty much.
In the same way that Chris Reeves was this like really likable guy off the screen, Henry Cavill is super likable and relatable, and I've never seen like one negative news story about him. He's everything a studio would want
He
in a
is
Superman.
a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
And just like Chris Evans is. You ever heard anything about Chris Evans? Chris Evans is Captain America through and
Really?
through.
No, yeah.
So, Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, those are the strong front runners. They need to build their franchise around them.
Yeah.
So, which leads to my next point is casting longevity. You need to have these people stay on for years. You need to have them contracted for years. Movies, team up movies,
10
solo
years,
movies.
10
Yeah.
years, 15. Okay,
10,
10 I
15.
think is kind of reasonable.
And then after you get your characters and your actors and actresses lined down, you need good storytelling.
Yeah.
So we have a mountain of comic book storylines that we could go off of. The ones that I thought would be good for the big screen, of course, is Flashpoint.
Sure.
Now, you could automatically just say, we'll do Flashpoint and we'll reset the whole thing.
Yeah, you could do that.
And that would be the easiest cop-out, I think, in the world. But then I go on to like Batman, Superman team up, Infinite Crisis or Crisis of Infinite Earth. You could do that one. Tie in the multiverse at some point. Black Adam's coming out, but I want him to have a Black Adam team up, and I don't want it with Shazam. I actually want it with Superman.
Black Adam and Superman teaming
yes.
up? Okay.
Yes. I would love a Legion of Doom movie, and I would love Brave and the Bold, period. It could be Green Lantern, it could be Green Arrow, it could be Superman, Batman, it could be a World's Finest kind of deal thing. But yeah, then there's some other stuff in there, but I want to hear yours because I feel like ours kind of intertwine a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So I asked myself the same question, right, of what is DC's main problem right now? And the big problem is going to be keeping the actors that you have in place right now while replacing actors that have left, like Affleck, but having to do it within the story. Because we almost know for 100% that they're going to do a younger Batman next, right? So if you have Gal Gadot standing next to a young Batman all of a sudden when she was just with this like 50-year-old Batman in the Justice League movie, your average moviegoer is not going to like accept that probably, right? And really, and your fanboy definitely isn't going to. So the problem then is continuity, right? Well, the good news is that DC Comics has a lot of experience fixing continuity within story. And to do that, you need a crisis, right?
Yeah.
So Crisis on Infinite Earths is my Infinity Wars. That is the culmination, the movie we're funneling and leading to. The two phases to get there, there's a multiverse phase and there's a cosmic phase.
Okay.
So the multiverse phase starts off with a Flashpoint movie.
It has to.
Yeah. It's just so obvious. It's right there. If you're going to go the route that I would lay out, you need to put all the money into this Flashpoint movie, right? This is your linchpin.
Yeah.
If this doesn't work, then you might as well just like
Stop making
wipe
superhero movies.
all the board completely clean, Wonder Woman and Aquaman included, and start fresh. So you got to make sure this is good. So to ensure that, you need to bring on a great director. The first name that popped to my head was Robert Zemeckis. He's the guy who made Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Forrest Gump.
Okay.
So clearly the guy knows his movies,
Yeah.
and he dabbled in some time travel stuff with the Back to the Future movies. Spielberg, I think, would make a great one too. Spielberg, you could probably plug on just about any of these, and he would deliver. I'm a big Spielberg fan. I also think that Phil Lord and Chris Miller would make a great Flash movie. Now, those are the guys who made the first Lego movie and the 21 Jump Street movies.
Okay.
And they were producers on Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
so
nice.
they have
Wow.
experience with multiverse stories as well. They have already been attached to a Flash movie. They left it to make the Han Solo movie and then got fired from that and then went on to Spider-Verse, which turned out okay with them. They just won an Oscar for it.
Yeah.
Right? In the same year they got fired, they won an Oscar. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet.
But
But I digress.
Oh, yeah, but we both agree that the Solo movie was terrible.
All right, so I heard, and this is a quick tangent. I heard Mark Bernardin, he did the best description I can imagine for the Solo movie, and that it is aggressively competent. There is nothing like inherently wrong with the movie, but there is nothing great about it either. There's no moment that just like kind of pops out to you. It feels like,
Except for Darth Maul. Spoiler.
yeah, that was cool. I will say that.
It was amazing. It actually made the movie up for me.
You've seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, in the beginning of that is like Indy's a kid and he's a Boy Scout, and you're like, oh, here's how Indy got the hat, and here's how Indy got the scar, and here's how Indy's afraid of snakes, and like it all happens in that one story, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much what Han
Solo felt like that, but just dragged out for like 2.5 hours.
Okay.
So that's
a good
all
tangent.
right. That's all I'm
That's a
going to
good
say
one.
about
No,
Solo.
that's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay, so then, we've got our director in place, right? So I think probably the most likely of those would be Phil Lord and Chris Miller. You can probably get them back onto a Flash movie. They've already agreed to it once. Or, go out and get Robert Zemeckis. Then the question becomes, do we recast the Flash with Ezra Miller? Which, personally, I wasn't big on Ezra Miller
Yeah, I
in
wasn't
the
either.
Justice League. Most people seem to like him, though, when
Which
it came
blew my
out.
mind.
I know. I think it's just unfamiliarity with the character, maybe, and just kind of liking that he was jokey and the quippy guy. But even to me, his jokes sometimes didn't deliver.
And they weren't what that character was about. Like,
No, I mean, Barry is more lighthearted, but not.
He's not
He's
that
not Spider-Man.
lighthearted.
He's
No.
not right. He's not Deadpool or something like that. So to me, if you're going to recast, one of the names that jumped to my mind is Joe Carey. That guy is Steve on Stranger Things.
Okay.
So if you're a Stranger Things fan,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
Steve.
Heck yeah.
I love that character.
Yeah,
and
dude.
like he was supposed to be just a reoccurring character, but they liked that actor so much
Nice.
that they made him a mainstay for season 2. And I think he could deliver Barry Allen, like just kind of like the charming, and he's young enough too, where you could get a bunch of movies out of him.
Yeah.
So then we're going to do the Flashpoint storyline, which of course is already great because we don't have to get Bruce Wayne.
Nope.
So there's bye-bye Ben Affleck, right? In fact, you can bring in the guy who plays Thomas Wayne in BVS.
Negan?
Yes.
What's his
Dude,
name?
he would make a great
Of
Thomas
course.
Wayne Flashpoint
What's his
Batman.
name?
So, no Batman, and then you have the war between Wonder Woman and Aquaman.
Oh, yeah.
As well, which you've
be
already got
amazing.
those actors too.
Yeah.
So like it completely lines up. Then there is a key scene that has to be in this movie, and this is why it is your gateway to the multiverse. Barry Allen is running through the Speed Force, to go back in time, save his mom.
So you're
And
talking about straight from the comic, like the panel?
Yes.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
when he's running through the Speed Force, I want to see Chris Reeves Superman go by. I want to see Adam West go by. I want to see Michael Keaton Batman. I want to see Linda Carter. I want to see Heath Ledger.
Ooh, you know how cool that would be?
Right?
On the big screen?
Dude, and just the fan service would be amazing. Like that, 1 minute of footage would be how many views on YouTube would that like one clip have?
Dude, just imagine Flash doing this and then showing that stuff going by.
It'd be amazing.
Oh, that would be your
it writes
teaser for the
itself.
movie.
This is why it's my transition point, because I would also then tease the 6 different multiverse movies
Okay.
that are going to be coming out next. So these are all going to be Tales from the DC Multiverse, story title. So we're putting right there in the title that, hey, this is a multiverse story. It's kind of like a one-shot. So even your general film goer should know that this isn't going to be necessarily like completely tied into each other.
Yeah. Probably have to work on the title because it's mouthful.
Sure, but something like that. Well,
Jeff-
I mean, you could put that like in small print at the top. Tales from the DC Multiverse, Batman Beyond. And Batman Beyond is just the part in big bold with Tales from the DC Multiverse and
I
top.
don't know, man.
We'll get marketing on it. They'll figure out a good logo.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan was the guy you're talking about.
There we go. There we
Huey.
go.
Thanks,
Jeffrey
Huey.
Dean Morgan. And the reason I think this approach would be enticing to filmmakers is almost a little counteractive to your point about contracts. That yes, from a studio perspective, that is comforting, right? From an actor perspective, do I want to spend 10 years on this character,
Yeah.
especially a director, Do I want to, because the director is going to be living in that world for however long they're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
They don't usually do multiple projects at a time like an actor can do.
Yeah.
But I think when you clearly make them one-shots, we can go out and get top talent. And
that
they
one.
know it's just going to be one movie, and like they can set it down and tell whatever kind of Batman or
Superman,
any tale
yeah.
they want to tell, and then walk away from it.
Yep.
So, that being said, Batman Beyond, directed by Denis Villeneuve. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name again, but that guy did Arrival
Ooh, nice.
and
I love
Blade
that
Runner
movie.
2049.
Did not watch that.
Oh, it's really good. It's
I did
really
watch
good.
Arrival. That was good.
But Blade Runner basically has the aesthetic of Batman Beyond, right?
Yeah.
The Batmobile in Batman Beyond is essentially a spinner from Blade Runner. So he's already kind of done that set design and stuff. I said I was doing 6 multiverse movies. 3 of them are kind of Batman themed and 3 of them are Superman themed. So we've got Batman Beyond for one of them. The other one, I would get Guillermo del Toro to make a Batman Red Rain movie, which is where Batman becomes a vampire, essentially.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So think classic horror. He's trying to fight
Slasher
Dracula.
Ooh.
I'm going to R rating.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can actually make it really gothic.
Ooh.
And
I'm liking
Guillermo
this.
del Toro would jump at that.
Oh, heck
right?
yeah.
What I love about that storyline is there's a part where Batman has to become a vampire to stop Dracula, but after that he can't contain his bloodlust, right? So Jim Gordon and Alfred put a stake through his heart, okay? But then another crisis arises where they need Batman in Gotham, so they have to pull the stake out and revive vampire Batman. So that's just a cool.
Yeah.
The visuals are right, that movie itself.
Definitely.
And then the other one I would do is it's kind of a lesser known Elseworlds story called 9 Lives. It's basically what if Batman existed in like a 1930s or 40s film noir movie. I have it here.
Yeah. I was reading that earlier. It was really cool.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So Selena Kyle has been murdered, and then she is kind of the go-to call girl for like a lot of the underworld in Gotham. So your main guy in Gotham is going to be kind of the Penguin. He is more of he's like a racketeur, essentially, right?
Yeah.
The Mr. Freeze is just like a stone cold killer, basically. He's a hitman.
Yeah.
The Joker is a down on his luck card shark. Dick Grayson is an actual like private eye, and that's who the story follows, is Dick Grayson.
Okay.
And he, of course, was romantically involved with Selena Kyle, as well as basically like half of Gotham was romantically involved with Selena Kyle.
Wow.
Meanwhile, he's trying to figure out what's going on with this Bruce Wayne guy, and like, how does Batman tie into all this? It's just really cool, and I think Rian Johnson would make an excellent movie of that. Rian Johnson is the guy from The Last Jedi, but the main movie I would pull him onto this for is a movie called Brick. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
It is phenomenal. It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it, and it takes place in a high school, but all the students talk like it's a 40s film noir movie.
So pause real quick. You just made me think of a Batman version of L.A. Confidential.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're going for here, right?
That's awesome.
Starts with the murder,
Yeah.
Selena Kyle, and then you're following Dick Grayson going through the Gotham underworld trying to figure it out, right?
I like that.
And dude, what's great about this pitch too? You can make that movie for cheap.
Oh, definitely.
You could go the Logan route and make that movie for under $100 million and watch it make close to $1 billion.
Heck yeah.
Right? Okay, so those are the 3 Batman themed ones. So the 3 Superman ones, I'm starting off with a Superman Red Sun movie.
Nice.
I would cast Cavill.
Yeah.
That's another kind of caveat here, is that I think you could cast multiple actors as Batman, since we're doing individual tales from the multiverse, and get away with it, since they're so different, right?
Yeah.
One would be the Vampire Batman, one is Terry McGinnis anyways, and then the other one is a 1940s film noir Batman. So I'm going to have different Supermen as well.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay, and then to direct Red Sun, I would get Guy Ritchie,
Okay.
who did Snatch and
Yeah.
Lock, Stock, and Smoking Barrel. And, that guy just makes really fun. And he made Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is kind of the reason I'm pulling him on here for Red Sun.
The first thing I thought about with Red Sun was having Ron Howard direct it.
Yeah.
But
I am very meh on Ron Howard after Solo.
it's cool.
It's like milquetoast or oatmeal. There's nothing wrong with oatmeal, but like, it's oatmeal. That's Ron Howard. Anyway,
Very
sorry,
shallow
Opie.
pedantic.
All right. So moving right along, because there's so many pitches here, I don't want this podcast to be forever.
No.
So the second Superman-themed one is a Kingdom Come movie starring.
Awesome.
This is the perfect chance to cast John Hamm as Superman. You have an older, wiser Superman. I just feel like you'd put a little gray streaks on the side of him, put the black backdrop on the S on his chest, and that's Superman. Now, I did have a very difficult time trying to think of a director for this one. It's just such a large, scope of a movie. The one that came to mind is the Russo brothers, which, made Civil War
Actually have
and
the Russo
Winter
brothers
Soldier
and some of the
and
other
Infinity
stuff.
War. If you could get those guys, great. If not, I think David Fincher, it's about time that he does a superhero movie. And to me, if you dangle Superman in front of any of these guys, they'll probably jump at it, right?
John Hamm Superman.
So then the third one is a movie I'm calling Kal-El of Krypton. But Kal-El does not have the usual dash in it. And the reason being is because that is how Kal-El of Earth-23, the African-American Superman who's also
The
president at the
okay.
same time, right?
Nice, yeah.
So give me that movie starring Michael B. Jordan. And then there's two names that popped up to me to direct it, right? One, to me, is just your go-to. You're going to hear this guy's name on basically any big movie, Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Jordan Peele would make a kick-ass Kal-El of Krypton movie. The second one is a more interesting choice, and it's definitely your shock value. What if Spike Lee made a Superman movie?
Oh my gosh. It would be this movie.
It would be this movie. It would
yeah.
be perfect. And again, that's what's great about these multiverse stories is you can be like, here, gigantic filmmaker, mold this into what you want it to be, and then just step away from it. If people like it, that's awesome. And if not, we're moving right along. Who cares? It's the multiverse.
But the problem, I guess the problem with it is the fans themselves, like your casual moviegoer, maybe may get behind it, maybe not. So if I'm the casual moviegoer and I see all these one shots, and then all of a sudden it leads up to Crisis, and the Crisis splits off to this other tangent of hero movies that we're actually going to have a chronological order for, or a line that we're trying to get to, it's going to be like, well, why did I even have to watch? Why did I have to watch the prequels?
Well, the Crisis wouldn't completely reset. We're going to basically just do where there's a, to summarize Crisis on Infinite Earths very quickly, is that there was there were a ton of different Earths in the multiverse. The Anti-Monitor comes around and starts eating different Earths, and eventually there's just one that's left. That's going to be your central Earth, right? So that's why this gets reset, and why you can bring in a new Batman, and why you can bring in a new Flash if you need to, and still keep Gal Gadot and Henry Cavill if he chooses to stay, which I really hope he does. And Jason Momoa, obviously, is Aquaman. And it also is a quick explanation to write off the Justice League movie. It's like, sorry, that was bad, but that was Earth 36.
Earth
Make the Snyderverse Earth whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can just leave it there. And even if you want to do cameos with it later, people will probably warm up to it eventually. You know what I mean? So that completes my first phase, which is the multiverse phase, right?
Yeah.
So leading into phase 2 is the cosmic phase. Now, there's one movie that has to happen, and DC has kind of announced it, but that's the only thing I've heard is the announcement, and that's a New Gods movie.
Yeah.
So New Gods, very quickly, is you have the High Father on New Genesis, and you have Darkseid on Apocalypse, right? They used to be of the same planet. Something splits them up. They're always at war with each other. And to fix that, to make peace, they decide to swap children, essentially, right? So High Father gives Apocalypse his son, and Apocalypse gives High Father his son. So the character Orion is actually fathered by by Darkseid, but raised on New Genesis with High Father. High Father's son is a man named Scott Free, who he gives to Darkseid. Scott Free escapes and flees to Earth and becomes a character called Mr. Miracle. And it is that escape that nullifies the peace treaty between New Genesis and Apocalypse. So the point of the New Gods movie would be to, one, establish the in-story beginnings of the DC multiverse. Establish the Monitor. So the monitors are very important in that they, go figure, they monitor the different regions of the multiverse, right? And make sure everything's kind of going to plan. And I would have the movie actually narrated by one of the monitors. So like we're with the Monitor as he's kind of going and seeing this battle between the new gods. Now, a thought that I had that I wasn't able to fully get it past the half-baked stage was I like the idea of having some characters start on in the New Gods movie and you see them in the next two movies, just as some kind of like quick tie over. They don't even have to be main characters, just something small in the background or something, just so that there is like a continuous thread that ties all of them together. In kind of the same ways that like R2-D2 and C-3PO are in all the Star Wars movies, but they're not like the main characters in them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay. So then the second movie in my cosmic phase, and this is really the only one of my movies that you don't really have to do, but it would be so much fun. And that's a War World movie. So War World, if you don't know, is an actual planet, run by Mongol. Basically, this would be what Secret Wars is for Marvel, where we're just going to get our heroes, put them on this one planet, and they have to fight each other. It would basically be that, but for DC. So I would have the lead of the movie and who we kind of follow their introduction into Warworld would be Lobo. Lobo needs a movie, and this just seems like this is the perfect chance. It's basically a prison movie, right?
Yeah,
so let's put Lobo in there.
His dues.
My casting ideas for Lobo, at first I thought Tom Hardy, and then I was kind of like, well, you can kind of throw out Tom Hardy for practically anything, right?
Yeah.
So the more I think about it, Norman Reedus, I think, would make a great Lobo. The guy from Boondock Saints, and he's also in The Walking Dead. I can see him, right? So once Lobo is on Warworld, you basically get a who's who of DC Cosmic. So maybe we see Orion and Big Barda. Maybe they're the tie-overs from the New Gods movie. Let's get some Martian Manhunter. Let's get Hawkman or Hawkgirl. Let's get Adam Strange. Someone from Gem World. Some of the Omega Men. Maybe one of the Manhunters is on Warworld. And a thought I had to tie it in, and I don't believe this is anywhere in the comics, but movies do stuff that's not in the comics all the time anyways. Darkseid is always in pursuit of the anti-life equation. So to me, he could have maybe Mongol works for Darkseid, and all of Warworld is designed is like a petri dish for how to figure out the anti-life equation. And they test it with these different space orphans that they just kind of pull in, right? And the director I would get for this one is George Miller, the guy who made Mad Max, all the original ones, and Fury Road. Just kind of that kind of punk rock attitude, I think would fit really well with a Lobo-led Warworld movie. And my third and final cosmic movie, Mike, you're going to like this one a lot.
I'm ready for it.
A Green Lantern Corps movie. So I'm going to have all the Green Lanterns in this, and it's going to be told through the eyes of Kyle Rayner.
Man, you would.
I'm a big Kyle Rayner guy, so that was my go-to, right? I wanted to, there's a reason why later. You'll see at the end why it needs to be Kyle Rayner. So Kyle Rayner gets brought in kind of for his creativity, right? He's a struggling comic book artist. So while, if Hal Jordan needs to hit something, he's like, all right, I'm going to make a bat. Kyle Rayner can make, it might be the Master Sword from Legend of Zelda. So
or Lucille from
Kyle Rayner's constructs are basically going to be pop culture references in the vein of Ready Player One. Just anything that this guy thinks of, he's going to throw out, and it's probably going to be some kind of pop culture movie reference stuff, right?
I gotcha.
For that same reason, I think Spielberg, again, to me, if you're going to throw him on one of the individual ones, this is a Spielberg movie, right?
Definitely.
So Kyle gets brought in, and his main trainer, the guy who he reports to, is going to be Jon Stewart.
Ooh.
Hal Jordan is higher up in the Green Lantern Corps this time, right? He's leading things.
I thought you were going to say Kilowog at first, which...
Well, you would see him in there as well, but, maybe John and Kilowog are working together at this point.
Yeah.
And then, you get an annoying Guy Garner cameo where he's just an asshole. In like a cafeteria or something. That just seems like a funny scene to me.
Sam
a Green
Rockwell.
Lantern Corps. Sam Rockwell will make a great Guy
Yes, he
Garner.
would.
That would be awesome.
Sam Rockwell's on like my list of anybody really that's funny.
Just to
or
throw him in,
jackass,
yeah. So this is where we really see how the Anti-Monitor came about. So the Anti-Monitor was kind of a product of the same guys that made the Green Lantern rings, right? It starts with a war between Oa and a planet called Quard, which is in the Antimatter universe, which is where the Anti-Monitor comes from. So I'm going to use this movie to set up the Anti-Monitor. He's this looming threat that's way off there that they're maybe trying to figure out throughout the movie of what's causing other parts of the multiverse to disappear. Because that seems like something the Green Lanterns would be aware of, right?
Yeah.
And I would have the movie end at a big conflict at the source wall. So the Anti-Monitor is trying to break through the source wall, right? And you
Okay.
have all the Green Lantern Corps there.
Yeah.
And here's the reason it has to be Kyle Rayner. Because Kyle Rayner is able to break through the source wall as the White Lantern.
Oh,
Okay?
lost me there.
Ah, come on. But see, then when he comes back through the source wall, he has seen the approach of the Anti-Monitor. So that's like your last scene is like the Anti-Monitor is
So you
coming.
haven't built up like any of the White Lantern stuff at all.
Use this movie too. Maybe you can start it off in...
What if this is like a two-parter movie?
It is a lot, so you could maybe break it up into two.
Like
Yeah.
Kyle Rayner gets to the point where he finds out about the White Lantern. You see him kind of like the one redeeming factor that the original Green Lantern movie had was when Sinestro put on the Fear Ring.
Okay.
He put on the Yellow Lantern ring.
Yeah.
And you would think that there was going to be this next movie that led up to it. The movie was terrible. That was the saving grace because like Sinestro finally gets his yellow ring. You're like, oh, there's a glimpse.
Right.
And then just completely,
Womp womp.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to kind of see that where Kyle figures out that like when he's at the source wall, he gets the knowledge. He gets the knowledge of the White Lantern, and then the whole second movie is them trying to get Kyle, and then Kyle breaks. They get Kyle out of there, breaks free, and they're like, the monitor is coming.
Yeah, there you go.
We need to get
So
ready.
you
for
have
this.
a better Green Lantern overall
Yeah.
knowledge than I do because I was like picking parts that I wanted to be in there, like the source wall, but I couldn't
Yeah.
find an actual Green Lantern story that like ends with a big conflict
Well,
at the source wall.
well, it's funny is that you could even do like the conflict of the source wall was like Darkseid put Superman on the source wall.
Okay.
So Kyle figures this out. He's going to go get Superman out. That's when he figures out about White Lantern. And when he goes to get Superman, he gets trapped. And then Superman is trying to warn Kyle.
There we go.
And then you pull up the Green Lanterns pull him out. We have to get ready for the Anti-Monitor. Who's the Anti-Monitor?
Right.
The source wall breaks.
So the conflict that Kyle Rayner is brought into is a war between Oa and Quard.
Yeah.
So that's our setup with the Anti-Monitor stuff, right? We're getting bits whenever they're on Quard. That's what we're dropping hints at. Is that the Anti-Monitor started here? Something really bad is coming to our sector of the multiverse.
So you're going to introduce the Yellow Lanterns at this point?
That sounds like a great part, right? Fear.
Yes.
So
Definitely. I like this.
that's a half-baked one, right? But yeah, you
no,
you
no.
need to pull that one out a little bit.
Yeah,
and
no.
that's how you
I think this one is great because this would actually build on the Green Lantern franchise. Like
Totally.
From what we know of Green Lantern, movie wise, it's just terrible. And you can
Yeah.
even actually cast Ryan Reynolds again if you wanted to.
sure as a Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that would be, dude, that would be amazing. Having,
What if he comes from one of the multiverses that's being destroyed? So you can say that his movie doesn't technically happen
exists.
anymore.
Oh my,
He's just a refugee of the multiverse.
oh my gosh, dude. So
maybe that's how he approaches them from
fourth
the
wall
beginning.
break.
But yeah, then all that leads to a Crisis on Infinite Earths. I would kill whoever we cast as Barry in the Flashpoint movie. That's
Okay.
to me
Yeah.
a Crisis. You got to have something with a Flash in
Yeah.
there, right?
Mhm.
You might need to film the crossover parts of Crisis when you're filming these other movies, just to make sure that actors still look the same when it comes out, that something hopefully doesn't happen to
Yeah.
those actors or actresses between them. Yeah.
So when you first talked about this, I forgot to mention this in my opening segment, I guess. I want this to be almost a Harry Potter take.
Okay.
Where you have like a coming of age story, but lasts for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the Green Lantern Corps could do that. And one of my main things was actors. Like I said, actor longevity. I just want to throw some names out real quick.
Okay.
Because I have a kind of a list. So I really want Brad Pitt. I want Brad Pitt to be something. I don't know what I want him to be yet. He could
That's a
even be a
hard get.
bad guy.
Yeah. I think he might jump at that more.
Yeah.
But then again, this is also why it's easier to get bigger name actors for villains. It's because villains are usually one-offs.
Exactly. And in the one shot storylines you're talking about to go into the multiverse, I feel like he could almost be Parallax. He could be Parallax at something. Or he could be a version of Deathstroke that we have never seen before.
Yeah.
Or he could even be the Black Mask. I think that would be really cool.
He would be a good Black Mask.
So, and then the
Sergeant Rock.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. You kind of killed my fire.
What about the losers? All right.
So you take this with a grain of salt. Zac Efron is Nightwing. KJ Apple.
I'm not going to lie. Efron came to my mind with some casting stuff too, but I feel like, I don't know, it's too jokey or something.
He could also be Booster Gold.
Yeah.
He could
would
also
nail
be
Booster
Adam
Gold.
Strange.
He would be a good Adam Strange.
J.K. Appa, who plays Archie in Riverdale.
Okay.
Arsenal.
Okay.
He could be Nightwing. He could be Dick Bats.
Okay.
And I guess I had him at another one, but I can't. Superboy.
Okay.
And then this
Like
is
Connor Kent, Superboy?
Yes.
Okay.
This is when I started getting my Game of Thrones actors.
Here we
and
go.
actresses. Amelia
It's only a matter
Clark.
of time.
Amelia Clark could be Cassie, or
Okay.
she could be
Wonder
Batwoman,
Girl, really?
or she could be Batwoman.
Yeah.
Maisie Williams more likely as Cassie, or
There we go.
as
I like
in,
that better.
Barbara Gordon, a young Barbara Gordon, and then
Clark would make an excellent Stargirl,
oh,
in my opinion.
yeah. Will she also make a good Star Sapphire?
Yeah.
Or she can make Arasia, which is the Green Lantern that Hal Jordan falls in love with.
Okay.
That's the one we were trying to talk
Right,
about last
last
time.
time.
Ian Glenn's voice. Ian Glenn plays Jorah Mormont. He could be his voice. He could do acting, or he could be like in-person acting, but his voice would be perfect for like the Highfather. It could be perfect
Yes.
for. You could even use his voice for Darkseid if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Natalie Dormer, she plays Marjorie Tyrell.
Okay.
I want her to be.
She's excellent.
Yeah, she would be a perfect Stargirl. She'd be a perfect Kara
Yeah.
Zor-El. Richard Madden, who plays Rob, could be Nightwing, could be Dick Bats. Could actually be a younger Superman. Charles Dance, who plays Tywin, I want his voice or him in person. He could be the Spectre, older Spectre,
Dude,
or he
would
could be even the
good
Preacher.
Spectre. In Kingdom Come.
Um,
I can see that very easily.
Rose Leslie, who plays Egret, Batwoman, red hair. I mean, it was a dead giveaway. Christoph Hivizga,
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
he could be
Love him.
Clayface.
Sweet.
I want him to be Clayface.
Sweet.
And then there's some other in here. Taron Egerton. I feel like he could play a Dick Bats or something like that.
That's the kid from the
Golden Circle
Right.
and Kingsman, stuff like that.
Okay.
Channing Tatum, Sam freaking Rockwell, because I love him. Woody Harrelson. I want James Franco as Plastic Man. Done. That's it. James Franco. And Christian Bale, please come back as Batman.
Jim Carrey's Plastic Man would be my pick, but
I could see that.
he's Plastic Man already. The way how moldable his face is.
Okay.
You don't even have to CGI that. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
But Christian Bale, please come back. Save
It's
the
not
DCEU.
happening, bro. And it makes me like hurt for you
What
to
if he
carry
came
that
back?
torch.
What if he came back as Owlman?
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
You could
Or
do that.
in the in the Justice Lord storyline, he's Lord Batman.
I think that's the only way you snag him. Maybe in the Crisis movie we pitched, maybe he's in part of that.
You know what's been really crazy is that in the Justice League movie when Barry comes back and warns Bruce, if we get another shot of that and he's warning Christian Bale instead,
Right.
and you're like, oh my gosh, and that's you get.
Oops, wrong multiverse.
Yeah. Oh, let me just run this way real quick. But it's gonna be crazy about though was when you said when he's running through the multiverse, if you see Dark Knight Batman, like the scene where he's got Joker hanging upside down,
Right.
You have that scene. You don't have any other scene. You just have that scene,
Yeah.
and you're like, wait, what does this mean?
See, the only reason I didn't include Christian Bale on my montage segment was that I definitely want Michael Keaton Batman in there just because of how visually different his Batman is
Yeah.
from the other ones. And then I want Adam West too, just to
Yeah, I could see that.
right, because I mean it's the multiverse, so there's the dark parts of it, and then there's also the light
lighter
parts
ends, yeah.
of the DCU too.
Do you have the Bizarre World as you go by?
You could do that, yeah.
Yeah, I
Which
think that'd be
actually,
neat.
that's I mean, I guess if we want to do this, that would be my pitch for a Man of Steel 2 movie.
Okay.
Is Bizarro
Yeah.
in some form. Definitely is not the main villain. Did you ever see that Superman the Animated Series episode where it opens up on Superman and he's flying around Metropolis and he's doing all these very Superman-like activities? Like there's a kitten stuck in a tree, right? And he gets it down, and there's some kids playing on a railroad track or something, and he gets one of them unstuck and gives them like a stern talking to, right? But it's all like too cookie cutter. You can tell something's like weird about it.
Yeah.
And then as he flies away, part of his skin starts to flake off. And
Oh,
there's the
that's
like
Bizarro.
white Bizarro. Yes.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing is a failed clone of Superman starting to like deteriorate. And so as he deteriorates physically, he deteriorates mentally, and he goes back to the lab of LexCorp, of course, where he
Yeah.
came from. And he's trying to figure everything out. And that's when Lex Luthor's assistant, Mercy, gives him the nickname, Bizarro.
I also like that you could do the Bizarro Superman from the Red Sun. Remember where he's fighting in Metropolis? He sends him out, and then Bizarro
Yes.
ends up sacrificing himself to stop the nuke.
Right.
You could do that kind of version of it.
Something sweet.
Yeah.
Like, Bizarro is such an innocent character that there's an easy way to make any ending kind of like the ending of Mice and Men.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
He's Lenny, was that the name of
Mhm,
that character,
mhm.
right? Where he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just so strong,
Yeah.
but he's childlike. And to me, too, the reason why that is such a gift to Cavill is because he gets to play two characters.
Exactly.
He gets
Oh
to
my
act his
gosh.
ass off
Yes.
with that, and like actually, here's something for you to do in a movie, Henry Cavill.
One other movie that I wanted to do was Superboy Prime.
I
Superboy's
would love
Prime
something
universe,
like that. Yeah.
where he grows up reading comics, and all of a sudden, boom, he's a superhero, and he becomes one of the strongest Superman ever in all the comics.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a storyline where he comes back and faces Superman of Earth 2 later.
That's the older Superman.
Yeah.
Right.
That's an Infinite Crisis, but there's also one where he comes back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Superboy Prime has returned," and he's like this all powerful, almost like a god at this point. But I would love to see him in Infinite Crisis. That's how he turns to like this innocent boy to like this.
This villain.
Yeah,
And that's once you set
somehow
up
maybe
your Crisis on Infinite Earths, every time that Warner Brothers wants to do a reset, you make a Crisis movie. And then I think that's something that like the general audience would eventually learn to enjoy, instead of just being like, okay, we're resetting everything, just ignore what came after, what came before. At least this is a way of a studio being like, we know these aren't still the same people. We're not trying to like Darren you from Bewitched.
yeah,
So this is how we're going to explain this in story.
that's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah.
Huey said he wants an Amanda Waller origin story. That would be kind
I
of
can
neat.
see that.
It's
Yeah.
almost like a spy/action thriller.
Totally. There needs to be. There is a corner of the DC universe that is very spy centric.
Yeah.
And give me Agent Grayson with
Yeah.
Amanda Waller, and I'm all about that.
Checkmate.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
All about it. So I'm surprised that we did that in the amount of time. I thought that
we
was
could
going to
go
go on
for
forever.
years, probably.
Yeah. Okay, so that's our pitches here for how to fix the DCEU. I guess both of them are really more concepts and like how to get to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
The details, of course, will be ironed out in between them. But yeah, do you have any last thing to say?
That was awesome. I was so excited when we decided to talk about this topic. I was telling Carter earlier that I didn't really get prepared for it until today, because I had so much stuff going on in my mind.
Excited about it. Yeah.
And I just wanted it to be something where I could jot something down real quick and then go off these tangents.
Totally.
Because I know that I would just have so much more to reflect on and then also talk about. Like I said, we could probably do this for 2 or 3 hours
Sure.
if we really wanted to.
Sure. Going, into more detail of the actual movies.
Yes.
Which, of course, Okay.
I have a script if you want to read it.
Really?
Just kidding. It stars me. And it stars me as
It's
the Green
directed
Lantern.
by me. Written by
Starring
me. Oh, he's my favorite actor. All right, well, that has been These Guys Have Issues. Be sure to join us next week, where we got a little special show here for you next week. Usually it's me and Mike here sitting with you while our producer Huey V is helping us out. Next week is going to be me and Huey V here giving you our 5 pitches for Marvel TV shows. Huey's kind of our in-house Marvel expert here, so we're tagging out there between him and Mike. And
Totally fine, because I've always wanted to learn how to produce.
it's going to be fun.
So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So that should be a good one. Be sure to be here next week. And I've been your host, Carter Hutchison.
And the co-host, Mike Thomas.
This episode has been produced by Huey V. We'll see you next week, kiddos.
This has been a Grassroots Comics production. Da da da! So what's your story?
What are you? Some kind of silly cartoon?
You got a problem with cartoons?